In our last lesson, we talked about unit rates. Now, a rate was a comparison between two unlike quantities. Well, perhaps we should have started talking about the word ratio. A ratio is a comparison between any two things. It could be 5:7. That's a ratio. It could be 6 cars for every 15 people. That's a ratio. A rate and a unit rate, which is another kind of ratio we did in our last lesson, and that was things like 32 cents per ounce. It is a comparison, just like these are comparisons, but it has to have labels and they have to be different quantities. Now, so we've had ratio, we've had unit rates. Now we're going to talk about a proportion. A proportion is a statement, and it says that two ratios or rates are equal. So if I said 1:2 as 5:10, that is a proportion. It is a statement of equality between two ratios or rates. We will in this lesson talk about how to determine if a proportion is true and then how to solve it. All right, suppose I talked about a true or false statement and I said, okay, is this true or false? 5:6 as 10:12. Now you could just make sure they're both reduced to lowest terms and compare them, or we can look at the cross products and see if the cross products. One of the cross products, 5 times 12, is 60. The other cross product, 6 times 10, is 60. So that's a true proportion. When there is a missing number and you're asked to solve a proportion, you're going to use this same idea of cross products. If I have 2:3 as an unknown number is to 30, now you could write this out as an equation, or you can do it as a two-step method. They're both good techniques. I'm going to work primarily with the two-step method. In the two-step method, you have the two cross products. Do the one where there are two numbers. 2 times 30 is equal to 60. Now, the second cross product has to also equal 60. So what you do is take the known product, 60, and divide it by the one number that you have, which in this case is 3, and you will get the missing quantity. X is 20. Now you could do it as an equation. That would be fine, that would be great, but in a variety of these problems, this two-step method may turn out to be a little bit more straightforward. All right, so let's look at our problems to work on. All right, we're going to jump right in and solve proportions. The first one, I have n:2 as 35:10. Step 1, do the cross product that involves the two numbers. So I have 2 times 35, and that product is 70. Step number 2, take the 70 that you just got and divide it by the number you haven't used yet, which is 10. That will give you the number that n should be, and in this case it's 7. N is 7, and you could check it by looking at your cross products. All right, let's look at number 2. I have 28 is to 32 as 7 is to an unknown number. Step number 1, let's do the cross product that involves two numbers. That will be 32 times 7. Grab your calculator if you'd like to. And you get 224. Step number 2, take that product of 224 and divide it by the one number that you have, and in this case we get 8. Y is 8. You'll want to look at each one of these instructions. It will tell you what kind of answer if it's not a whole value. All right, number 3. I have 7 is to 10 as n is to 15. This time the cross product that I can figure out is that one. So I'm going to have 7 times 15 is 105. Step number 2, use the 105, divide it by the number I haven't used yet, which is 10. And it's going to go in there not evenly, it's going to go in there 10.5 times. I notice that it says to give a decimal if it's not an integer, so my answer is 10.5. 10 times 10.5 is the same as 7 times 15. Okay, sometimes we have decimals. We have n is to 0.6 as 0.05 is to 5. Step number 1, I'm going to do that cross product. So I have 0.6 times 0.05, and that gives me 0.03. Step number 2 is to take 0.03 and divide it by the number we haven't used yet, which is 5, and I get 0.006. Type an integer or a decimal. This time it'll be a decimal, 0.006. We have a couple more. Number 5, we have 1/2 is to 2/15 as 5/3 is to n. Now don't get upset because you're seeing all these fractions and it looks somewhat complicated. Just remember your process. This is the cross product you can do because it has numbers. So step number 1 is to multiply 2/15 times 5/3. We know how to multiply fractions. We're going to bow tie before we multiply. 5 goes in there once, 5 goes in there 3 times. You're going to multiply 2 times 1 for 2, and 3 times 3 for 9. Step number 2, we're going to take that 2/9 that we just got, and we're going to divide it by the number we haven't used yet, which is 1/2. Division of fractions is keep, change to multiplication, flip the second fraction. 2 times 2 is 4, 9 times 1 is 9. N will be 4/9. And you can see in this one an integer or a simplified fraction. Okay. The last one, we have n is to 1 1/5 as 4 1/6 is to 22 1/2. If your first instinct is to change all of these to improper fractions, that's fine. I will end up doing it as I move through the problem. This is the cross product that I can calculate. So step number 1, I have 1 1/5 times 4 1/6. I do need those to be improper fractions. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 1, 6/5 times 6 times 4 is 24, plus 1 is 25/6. Those 6's cancel out. 5 goes in there once, 5 goes in there 5 times, and I get, as that cross product, 5 or 5/1. Step number 2, grab that number and divide it by what I haven't used yet, 22 1/2. So that's 5/1 divided by 2 times 22 is 44, plus 1 is 45/2. So it's 5/1 times 2/45. 5 goes in there once, 5 goes in there 9 times. Multiply 1 times 2 for 2, multiply 1 times 9 for 9. Simplified fraction, yes, I have 2/9. So I get to review a little bit about multiplying and dividing fractions and mixed numbers. So those are proportions. That's how you solve a proportion using your cross products, dividing by the third number. And you could do it all with equations, but the two-step method is pretty good. I tell you what, I'm going to take a minute to do at least the first one as an equation. I have n over 2 is equal to 35 over 10. The cross products are equal. This cross product is 10n. This cross product is 2 times 35. So 10n is equal to, multiply those for 70. Divide by the coefficient, which is 10, and n is equal to 7. In this problem, there's really no difference in the difficulty between the two methods. When you get to problems like this, it really is a little bit more straightforward to just do the step 1, step 2, rather than do it in equation format. But you are welcome to do it either way.